So we're going to finish up. All right, guys, listen, please. So we're going to finish up just talking about a few things related to diffusion and osmosis.
We already read this.
No. So the first has to do with how diffusion is affected by some different factors, because there are different factors that will affect how quickly molecules will diffuse. So we know molecules will go from a high to a low concentration, but how quickly that happens depends on a couple things. One important thing that it depends on is the amount of heat energy, right, and the state of matter. So when we talk about heat energy, what we're really talking about is the movement of molecules. Molecules that make up substances are always vibrating. And as the temperature of a substance increases, the molecules vibrate faster. They move more quickly. Okay? We think about the states of matter, solids, liquids, and gases. In solids, the molecules are moving pretty slowly. They're just vibrating in place. In liquids, they're moving more quickly. And in gases, they're moving very quickly. And they have a lot of freedom of movement. So we can increase how quickly diffusion happens by doing a couple of things. One is by adding heat. The warmer the air, the more quickly molecules will diffuse through it. The warmer a liquid is, the more quickly molecules will diffuse in it. So heat is one factor that affects the rate of diffusion. Now, I'm going to show you this demonstration rather than look at this video, so let's get that. Also, diffusion will happen more quickly, and more diffusion will take place with a greater surface area. If we're talking about molecules moving across a membrane, the greater the surface area of that membrane, the more quickly molecules and the more molecules can get across. Okay, so I have here 2 beakers of water, and I'm going to put a drop of dye in each of them. So you guys, you take a look at these. Which one was the warm water? This one or this one? Yes, this one. This is the one I just got warm water. I think this one's cold. How did you know?
Because it spreaded.
Yeah. What word? It's diffused. The dye molecules went from a concentrated area to a less concentrated area more quickly. Diffusion happened more quickly in that beaker because it was warmer.
Looks like
Now, inside of living our bodies, for example, surface area is very important. So, for example, in our small intestine, which winds around through our abdomen, what happens in the small intestine? That's very important. Really?
Doesn't it make poop?
Yeah, not quite. Large intestine.
Oh,
But
sorry.
small intestine?
Doesn't it like put the food everywhere, like bring it to the large intestine?
No, I mean, but along the way, stuff happens. What else? Why do you eat?
Because
to live.
Why do you need
Gives
to
you energy.
eat to live?
Yeah.
You need energy? What else?
Because your food hitting nutrients.
So you need energy, you need vitamins, you need nutrients. And so we get those nutrients out of the foods that we eat. So as food moves through your small intestine, one of the important things that happens is nutrients from those foods are absorbed into our blood. But our small intestine is not like a hose. It's not a smooth tube on the inside winding around inside of our abdomen. If it were just smooth on the inside, it would have a surface area of about the top of your desk. You know, if you were to open up the small intestine and spread the whole surface area, if it were smooth on the inside, it'd be about your desk. But it's not smooth on the inside. It actually has all of these bumps and these ridges. These are called villi. and it goes up and down and up and down. So it has all of these villi on the inside, which increases its surface area by a huge amount. Because if you take all of those bumps and ridges into account, the actual surface area of your small intestine is about 2 full basketball courts.
Whoa.
So having all of those windy areas gives it a much, so as an example, let me show you an example. So I could have this much paper towel, right? If this is nice and smooth, and it has this much surface area, I can measure it and calculate it. Or I could have paper towel, which would be the same, if I have it be the same length, but it has all of these bumps in it and ridges.
It's not this because if you flatten it out.
Right, and that's what I'm talking about. So we have these bumps and these ridges, even though it's about the same length here. Which one has a greater surface area?
The one that's bumpy.
The bumpy one with these ridges. Its surface area, hold on, is probably double this one. And that's in our intestine. Our intestine is not smooth out. It has these tons of bumps and ridges called villi. And that's so that there is a huge area for us to absorb nutrients from our foods. Vinny, pay attention, please. Lily?
It's like the small intestine is really, really big. Why is it the small intestine?
Because it's narrower than the large intestine. Sophia?
Wait, so if you like spread it out into 2 basketball courts?
Yep. If you spread out all the surface area, just like, if I take this and then I just sort of open it up and spread it all out, yes, it's a much bigger surface area. In our intestine, it's like 2 basketball courts compared to if it were smooth about your desk. Another area where this is important is in our lungs. So our lungs are not sort of 2 hollow balloons. If you imagine, when you breathe in air, you inflate. You have a left lung and a right lung, but they're not just like a pouch, like 2 garbage bags that fill up with air. The inside of our lungs is actually all of these tiny little, they look like broccoli, little clusters of grapes. They're called alveoli. And all of these little air pockets give our lungs a huge surface area. Okay, they're about 1 basketball court. Okay, so they have all of these little air pockets give them a very large surface area. Why is that important in our lungs? Not to hold the air, really.
To breathe.
No.
Take in air.
Hold on. It's not about inhaling or exhaling. It's about something else. Yeah, it's about getting as much oxygen as possible into our blood. We have all those clusters so that there's a huge surface area for oxygen to diffuse from that air into our blood, and we get enough oxygen into our blood. We need that surface area. Yes, Bailey?
So if you're sitting it like this, like straightened
Yep.
out, it'd be.
Yep. Yeah. All right. One of the last things we want to talk about here is what we've been talking about, osmosis and diffusion, are types of what we call passive transport. It does not require any energy for molecules to diffuse. They just sort of on their own naturally go from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. It doesn't need any energy. So that's called passive transport. But there are times when your body, when your cells or other organisms, they need to move molecules the other way. They need to get molecules from an area of low concentration to an area of high concentration. And the molecules don't generally want to do that. So in order to move molecules in that way, there's a process called active transport. So what do you think about active transport? To get the molecules from a low to high concentration, Eddie?
We transport it from one,
Is that going to happen just on its own?
No.
No.
It takes work.
It takes work. It needs energy. Active transport uses energy to force molecules to go the other way, from a low to a high concentration. And often in the cell membrane, there's these large proteins that are stuck inside of the cell membrane that actually do this work. This is an example of one called the protein pump, a proton pump, sorry. And it pumps hydrogen across the cell membrane from a low concentration to a high concentration. So my example, do you remember when I talked about diffusion? If I took every 7th grader and I forced them into this room, and then I opened the doors, would I have to tell people to move over there?
No.
No. If I forced every 7th grader into this room, though, and then I found someone, nobody's in the hall, then I found a 9th grader walking by, are they going to come in this room on their own?
No.
No. But I could grab them, and I can force them into this room. I could bring them from a low concentration in the hallway and force them into this higher concentration in the classroom, but I'm going to have to use just a tiny amount of energy.
If a 9th grader walks past, can you grab him and pull him in?
What?
If a 9th grader walks past,
That's what I usually do, but there's no molecules
let's keep
out there.
looking.
What?
Let's keep looking.
I will. So I would have to use some energy to do that.
Can I be your scout?
No, that's
I'll
okay.
pay attention and
That's all right. All right, our last thing here.
There's a guy, you start shooting at him. I need you as an example.
So,
You did.
if I have this, we're going to work with, you remember that dialysis tubing we used when we set up our molasses? That semi-permeable membrane? Well, if I took a little sack of that dialysis tubing, and inside of it, I put 2% water, 2% salt, 98% water. Okay? If I did that, and I put this inside of a beaker that was just 100% pure water, what would happen to it? Think about osmosis and concentration. What would happen if I put this bag into that beaker of 100% water? Billy?
The salt, wait, no, it would be more like, it would be like more watery.
What would be?
The salt, the water,
I don't know if I'm following you.
the salt water stuff would be more water.
Okay, why?
Because it's 100% water and that isn't 100%.
Right, so we have 100% water here. What's inside here?
Salt and water.
98% water.
Oh,
So water would go into that sack from a high concentration in the beaker to a lower concentration in here. How about if I put this sack into this beaker that is 90% water and 10% salt? What would happen in that case? Sophia?
The water would want to go in. Wait a second, never mind.
What would happen in this case? Think about the concentrations of water. Where is there a high concentration of water if I put this in this?
In the sack.
Yes, in a lower concentration out here in the beaker. So which way will water move?
Into the sack, into a high concentration.
High to low concentration. Remember, always high to low. So which way would that be, Bailey?
What?
Which way would it go?
From
Yes, from this sack, which is 98% water, out into this beaker, which is 90% water. How about if I put it in this beaker, which is 98% water as well?
They would stay.
Stay about the same. Yes, stay the same. So this one would expand because it's in a higher concentration of water. This one would shrink. So this may give you some ideas about what's going to happen to our eggs. No. All right, so that's all we want to do here for today.